Hey guys, welcome back to Fifth Down Territory. We got the whole crew coming at you after a couple weeks off. Say hi to your boys. It's at Stadium Rant over there, our owner and CEO Tyler, Shane Carter at Shane Carter TX. He's back from a bit of a hiatus. We're excited to have him back. You know, Bahooke's always dropping in and out of these things at Bahooke Montana, and myself at L Stewart 503. We're excited to be back with you guys. We got so much to talk about today. And as always, we're ready to just talk football, right? I miss it. We're already gone. Like, it's been a couple weeks. And if you miss football, there's no better place to get your football content than stadiumrant.com. 4 to 5 articles a day, ranging from every team to every topic that you could imagine. And most of all, it's fan-driven content. So make sure to go check them out, guys. You're not going to be disappointed with that. And we're going to go ahead and just dive into the show today. I feel like we have so much to talk about and so little time to do so. And so what we're going to start with today is we're going to talk franchise tag. What it is, how it's used, why it's such a big deal every year when this part comes around. So Bahooke's going to go ahead and lead us off here, and he's going to give you guys a bit of a history of the franchise tag that I think is going to help put some stuff into perspective. So take it away, Bahooke.
You're muted. Starting the show off real strong here.
Yeah.
Take two.
There we go.
All right, there we go. I'm back.
He's here.
All right. Anyways, so yeah, I wrote like a little thing about this. Tag was introduced in 1993 after the Cowboys slapped around the Bills in the Super Bowl. It was the end of the non-salary cap era, and that was kind of how those teams got to be built. Those teams would not have been built in this current era. But it was part of the CBA at the time, and the idea was to keep veteran players from like moving around too much. Like Reggie White was the first free agent. He took it up to the Supreme Court. But Jim Kelly was one of the main people that they were concerned with trying to keep. They wanted to try and keep him in the Buffalo market, and he himself was never actually tagged. I looked at the first person to ever be franchise tagged was Nick Lowry of the Kansas City Chiefs.
There's a name.
Yep. And the Bills did beat that Kansas City Chiefs team in the AFC Championship. Joe Montana was the quarterback. And then so yeah, that was how it started. We were kind of talking about this pre-show. Like what is the best way to use it? Is the tag good? Is the tag bad? And so the original purpose of it, I feel like, is kind of a sketchy practice, honestly. Using it as like to leverage like veteran players, so it's not so like to kind of keep them there. We were talking about do the Bucks do this for Mike Evans or not? I mean, but then there's also and then I'm sorry, I got distracted.
What a dick.
But anyways, the tag in my opinion is best used like when you got guys coming off of like the rookie deal and then like they ball out in a contract year and you're not sure, like we were talking about T. Higgins, you give him one more year and prove it. Like the Cowboys did that with Tony Pollard. They did it with DeMarcus Lawrence in the past. So I feel like in that scenario, like the tag is very useful. Another example I had was it helped the Bucks kind of keep their Super Bowl team together at the end. Like they were able to keep on Chris Godwin, and Shaq Barrett was released today. It didn't end up working out long term for him. But I feel like the salary cap's been as much money as it is, as much money as we've seen it pumped into it. It's hard to navigate when you're trying to win championships. And is the tag good? I mainly said it's a case by case scenario. It depends which GM you're talking about and which player you're talking about, and how it's being used. It's really kind of a fluid discussion. I've been talking for a minute. I can turn it over to whoever wants to go next.
Tyler, why don't you go ahead, and then Shane and I'll do this last half. But you go ahead and tell us, kind of explain scenarios from a GM's perspective when you would use the tag.
So, I mean, the best time to use a tag generally is somebody that you haven't tagged before, because once you tag somebody, then next year, if you try and tag them again, it goes up by 120% of their last tag number. So, for Chris Jones, for example, the defensive tackle tag number is around 20 million, but he's been tagged before and he was also
22.
making more than that, 22.
Mm-hmm.
So he would get upwards to between 28 and 32 million dollars if he was tagged a second time by Kansas City. So that makes him like that's a scary proposition for a team like that. Although he's a great player, but with the franchise tag, you can't move that money around. Like that is your cap hit is that exact number for that year. You can't do anything about it. So really, you're looking for a player like Blake said, coming off his rookie deal, who hasn't really been tagged yet. That's kind of the situation you want to look at. Player like L'Jarius Sneed's probably like your A1 tag candidate who really showed a lot this year. He took that step, that vaulted step into probably a top 5 cornerback area, and that you want to keep him. You don't want him to hit the open market, because if he hits the open market, another team is going to throw the bag at a player like that. So you give yourself a little bit of time to work out an extension with him. He doesn't have to hit that open market. And if you can't come to a long-term agreement, there's always the option to be able to trade the player after you've tagged him. So I would say a player like L'Jarius Sneed, player like Michael Pittman, a Josh Allen, the linebacker for the Jaguars, Brian Burns. These are all players that teams should be looking at the tag, because if you let a player like that go for nothing, you're losing an A1 talent. You're not getting anything in return. Like it's kind of like the Patriots, Tom Brady. Like if you don't get something for that, you're going to be looking back, being like, why didn't we capitalize on that asset? So it's just using it on a player like that who basically, I would say, like, coming off their rookie deal is the ideal place to place a franchise tag. You also have a player like Mike Evans, who has definitely shown he's worth the money, but like, does Tampa Bay have enough to give him a long-term deal? They actually have another candidate for the tag who I think is a better fit for them, Antoine Winfield. I think he's a top 5 defensive back in this league, and if he hits the open market again, somebody's going to throw the bag at that type of player, and they should not want to lose him. So like I said, coming off rookie deal, somebody who hasn't been tagged before, and somebody who's shown a lot of promise, but you're not quite sure if you want to give them the long-term deal just yet.
Yeah. So Bahooke and Tyler here have kind of explained, in theory, what the tag was supposed to be, and then kind of how GMs use it now. So Shane, I'm gonna read you some recent, probably like last 5-ish years, tag and trade scenarios, which I think is where, I don't want to say the ethical nature of the tag gets discussed a lot, but kind of feels like these players are getting shafted, right? They're having to go to a new team, and instead of being allowed to go out and kind of create this maximum value for themselves, they're, tagged and traded maybe to a team that they don't want to go to. So these are some that have happened in like the last 5 to 7 years. So the Jaguars tagged Yannick Ngakoue back in the day in 2020, and he got dealt to the Vikings for a second-round pick in 21 and a conditional pick in 22. Okay? So do you remember that trade, Shane? I feel like that was pretty big that year.
Well, it was, because that was after the year that he had, I think he had made second team All-Pro in that season, and he, before Josh Allen was there, was that premier pass rush that the Jags had needed, and they were coming off, I think, a season removed from an AFC East championship appearance, and he was a big reason for that. As far as the tag and trade concept goes, is that you are granted at the very least a second round pick, because that's how the tag is written out, because the concept of the tag was it saves player from entering free agency, but it also kind of pigeonholes them to what would be something, because they're saying that we want to keep you, but we don't want to but we can't negotiate with you at this moment. It takes away their ability to see open markets, to see their actual true value, And what's worse is that a lot of times these tagged players, they're 1 year removed, 1 year older. Sometimes they get hurt. Their value immediately declines. In case in point is just recently, my guy Tony Pollard. The Cowboys tagged him because they couldn't reach out a deal, even though I thought paying him $11 million last year was a mistake coming off a broken ankle in the playoffs. And even though he had times of showing burst, he wasn't the same guy. And but that gave him $11 million, which is nice in that moment, but it also pigeonholed him and the Cowboys cap to a point that they weren't going to go out and do much more. And that's another reason why I think the cap is unethical, because you are required to use a certain number of your cap space. You can't just use none of it. And so a lot of times teams will use that cap to fill out their cap room number to avoid overspending as some sort of justification. Because we know that these GMs and these owners they want to get as good a deal as they possibly can for these players without necessarily losing value on these guys. Another thing I have an issue with it is because a lot of times the tag number is actually below their current market value at that moment for the certain player. For an example, just right now, right? The cornerback market right now on the tag is 19.8. But I believe there's like 7 or 8 cornerbacks who are making more than $20 or $21 million a year at the moment. And so the tag is based on like the top 5 average of the previous position of the last year going into this year. The problem is all these cornerbacks got paid over that time, like Trayvon Diggs did. Jay Alexander, I believe, is still the highest paid cornerback in the league. And so a lot of times, yeah, they'll get $19 million, but there's no sustainability beyond that. And also, you don't see the maximum market value at their peak. And a lot of times these guys enter their 3rd, 4th, and 5th year in the NFL reach that peak value, especially at positions which once they reach the age of 26, 27, they begin to decline. Especially as skill position players, happens all the time, and it likely is going to happen again this year.
Yeah. And I think the other part that I guess we don't really talk about, because we kind of look at sports as like numbers and pieces, but like these guys usually have families and they usually have kids. And sometimes these people end up like some teams will trade just for like a 1-year lease, essentially. Like that kind of happened to Jadeveon Clowney a few years ago. He got traded to the Seahawks for like a 3rd or 4th or something and a couple players, and they used him for a year and then released him, right? So that's a thing that could happen. Like a guy who's coming off probably would get a multi-year deal somewhere else, ends up kind of going and having to go into this limbo year. Like Shane said, I can't get paid. I'm going to be older. I have to match this exact production. And then also, like, okay, they have to upend. They have to move to a completely different city for 1 year.
Better not get hurt.
Yeah.
Somebody like Chase Young or Leonard Williams, like this past year, who were basically purchased as a rental for a Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
those are also massive candidates for a franchise tag, because if they hit the open market and they leave, you essentially, like the Seahawks gave up pick 47 for Leonard Williams. Like that's a top 50 pick. Like they need to keep him in house because they gave up that type of draft capital for him. Like,
but they have to decide if he's worth the cap number for them. Defensive tackles right now, we're going for $22 million, like we talked about with Chris Jones. Is he worth that much money? I think as a run stopper, he's one of the better athletic run stoppers you can rush the passer, but I don't know if he's worth that much. I think his market's probably more in the 15 to 16 a year. In that case, you're looking at least a 1-year win for Leonard Williams, but again, no job security beyond this year.
Yeah.
And I guess my biggest, like, we'll kind of give a final answer here on, like, do you think the tag's good or bad? And I think the case study to really consider, for me at least, is Christian Kirk to Jacksonville just a couple years ago, right? Christian Kirk is not a premier wide receiver 1, or was not viewed that way coming out of his Cardinal situation.
I laughed at that contract.
He was able to get
when they did that.
A record-setting, a really rich contract to go to a place where nobody wanted to go. So
He's played up to it.
Yeah, he's played up to it. I think I would agree with that, right? But conceptually at the time, it was a little hard for people to wrap their minds around.
It broke the market.
Yeah. So dudes like T. Higgins, right? He's not going to make more money than Jamar Chase. Probably nowhere close to the money of Jamar Chase in Cincinnati if he ends up staying. Would the Panthers potentially overpay him in free agency to make sure Bryce Young has some kind of, competent target to throw to? I think that's a realistic outcome if he hits free agency. And what you're kind of doing is, like, no matter, even if it is a reasonable extension that they come to with T, that we would say, yeah, this is low end of his value, but like an acceptable whatever. is that what he could have made? Is he ever going to have the opportunity to make up the difference in those contracts solely because the franchise tag exists and prevented it? Because the Panthers can't afford to trade any more draft capital.
No. I'm
So-
99% sure that the Bengals made the tag on Higgins official. So he is tagged by the Bengals.
Yeah.
But that
I
could be
just-
that would be a tag and trade possibility right there. If they don't think he's going to make it beyond that year, because at the end of next year they have to pay Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I actually see that right now. Bleacher Report 10 minutes ago says Bengals open to a T. Higgins trade from Cincinnati's director of player personnel. Won't rule out that possibility.
Send him back to Carolina. It's okay. It makes a lot of sense. Everyone's been saying it for months.
So we talk about like second and thirds. So Carolina's second's basically a first, but is their third enough to get T. Higgins? So then you're talking about like this, can they even afford to trade for it? Like where he would probably make the most sense, be able to be productive, be able to get the most money. Are they even in play anymore?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Final verdict here. Would you say the tag, and I'm not talking like ethically, I know there's so many different ways we could go with this.
I don't like it.
Do you think the tag is good or bad for the sport as a whole?
Bad.
Okay. It also ruins the free agent market because everybody like gets so excited about, oh, look at this free agent class, and then you get to March 5th and Calvin Ridley is going to be the best wide receiver available. You know what I mean? Like
it happens every year too.
Not terrible, but yeah.
No, it's not. I'm not. I actually had the Patriots going and signing
there.
Calvin Ridley this year, but like Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, maybe Mike Evans, like those are your big three like players right there. So like, you know what I mean? Like none of them are going. Like Mike Evans probably gonna hit the market, but the top two like gems of the wide receiver class aren't hitting the market.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us like it.
Bahooke, what would you, good or bad on the franchise tag?
I'd say it's more bad than good.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of the same opinion on this. I think the NFL especially just, I would say situationally needs to find a way. I think Shane talking about Tony Pollard is a great example. Like his true opportunity to make money has probably passed him by. He's getting older. He's coming off a bad year of production. So you're probably going to sign a cheap 1-year deal. And even if you prove the production, then you're just another year older, which is
he's gonna be a rotational back from this point. He can't be the focal point guy anymore.
And so, his career's gone. And $11 million is all he's ever going to get. And I know it's hard to sympathize with these players because that's so much money.
I'd take that tag.
Yeah, but I think we all would take
different.
You can sympathize with the money they lost
from
the franchise.
And I think you have to look at it like, as you wouldn't want to be the 37th highest paid person at your company if you were a top 5 producer in your company. And so you kind of have to think of it in that scenario. Like, don't look at the actual numbers, look at like percentage and placements and things like that. But anyway, so yeah, the tag window is open and it closes on March 3rd. Is that right?
5th.
March 5th. Sorry. Thank you. And then free agency opens on the 11th. So, when March 5th rolls around, we'll have a definitive, yes, these guys are going to be available to sign. That market's usually a little bit smaller than we always hope it's going to be. So I'd be looking, these guys wheel and deal at the combine, which I think is a great segue into our next point of view. What do you guys think about the combine at this point? Original conception was kind of like Senior Bowl in a vacuum is how I like to think of it. It's a place for people to showcase their skills, sans talent around them. So people who might have been in bad situations but are good players, or people who might not be great players but are in good situations. It's kind of a way to stack these guys up. Athletic scores are really big for some teams, compiling all of that. But a lot of players don't even go anymore to the combine. So, Shane, do you want to lead us off on this one? What are your thoughts?
I would love to. I've actually talked about this before. And I talked about it on the radio, believe it or not, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, about the concept of the combine is really be honest, it's a talent show. And really, like, only certain positions get any real value from this. And it's only certain, certain skills that actually get shown up in this thing. For instance, I don't know what the point of an offensive lineman running a 40-yard dash is, Then offensive line running the T test and the L test makes a lot of sense because you want to see their short yardage movement. Skill position players running the 40-yard dash shows downfield speed, and that's only going to be useful on post and go routes. Other than that, a lot of times you have to see those quick reactions. And in today's NFL, you want to see these guys who can separate their ability to run routes, and that's where the T test, my opinion, is more valuable test than the 40-yard dash overall. Another popular one is the bench press, especially when you're with defensive linemen and offensive linemen, because they want to see how strong you are. But again, that's just short areas strength in a controlled environment. I want to see if you want to see like a true test of strength for that one, you need to see them in bag practices whenever like you see them at Senior Bowls and in pro days whenever they actually have like someone pushing them with that pad and seeing their reaction time as well as the contact made, because that shows you like one, how quickly their body reacts and the force exuded out, whether on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. So the combine in and of itself, again, is really just to showcase talent, but not every position needs to go, and not every position needs to run the same test as everybody else.
See, that's crazy because the sole measure of me drafting a punter would be how many bench reps he gets in. Like when a punter can crank out 28 reps, I'm like, I'm taking you in the second.
You must have been a big fan of Lawrence Tynes. That dude was jacked.
That's Bill Belichick thinking right there, my friend. That's Bill Belichick thinking.
All right.
He took Tyquan Thornton in the second round because that man had the fastest recorded 40 unofficially of all time.
Yeah, over George Pickens. I know. I remember. I'm pretty upset. And Rashid Rice and Puka Nacua.
So, Blake, why don't you go ahead and talk about your perspective on it? Do you think it's more at this point, like, right? Shane gave a great perspective on players and how people are looking at this and what maybe the value of the actual event come in. How do you feel like the event is for all the NFL brass getting together from that perspective? You and Tyler can speak on this together because you guys were talking about it pre-show. So just chime in.
Yeah. A1 and synopsis by Shane. I said pre-show before you're on here. I'm happy you're going to be here for that right there.
Don't lie to these people. Don't lie. It's okay.
No, I can attest to it. It happened.
No, I
actually
said it before you were on here. I don't lie. That's like one of my big things.
Bahooke misses you the most.
I do, serious. Anyways, moving on. I don't think it really affects like the top picks that much. You know, like the first round, the round one guys are the round one guys. We've seen what they put on tape. That's why they're round one guys. Like Caleb and Jaden are announced they're not throwing at the combine. What do those guys have to prove to anyone? Nothing. They're about to be made men. But it can really help for some of those mid-round guys. My example I had on here from years ago was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, out of USF, and had the big Super Bowl catch. He was not really that highly recruited. You know, USF's not really a big time university, but he had great measurables. He was the tallest wide receiver in the class.
He was one of the fastest wide receivers in the class. Those
are two things that you can't coach, are size and speed. And you get to see some of these guys up against their peers that you wouldn't normally get to see them against. And so for some of those like I said, mid-round guys can really help their draft stock. But the main point of the combine isn't actually the combine itself, in my opinion. I've been wrong before, but it's all of the GMs being in one place at the same time. And I think that this is the biggest talk of the combine this weekend is not going to be in like what anyone's 40 times are. It's going to be what's happening with Justin Fields and or the number one overall pick, because that's what's heating up here, and that's what everyone's going to be whispering and talking about. And I think that we're gonna be finding out a decision for that pretty soon, at or after the combine.
Yeah, I do agree to you with a point, like to a point about the top guys. I think that when like Justin Herbert went through, like we all knew Herbert was a good player. He had a good team in Oregon. He played really well there, but a lot of his snaps were in the shotgun, so there was some question marks about him playing under center and his 5 and 7 step dropbacks. So like him going to the combine and getting under center and like showing his footwork and showing that he can actually like drop back and still sling that on a 50-yard rope is like, oh wow, like this might elevate him from being the 20th pick to a top 5 pick like he was. You know what I mean? So I think that like if Jaden Daniels chose to participate, I think that there was a real chance with all the off-field issues that people perceive about Caleb Williams that he could have bumped his draft stock from 2 or 3 to possibly 1 with a really, really good combine performance. I also think that Drake May not going there is like sneaky and shady. Like what's the problem? Like a lot of these agents are actually telling their player, their representative that they shouldn't go and throw, but like that's what you do. Like go and show your skill, get in front of these people and like show them what you can do. Like seeing it on tape and seeing it in person are 2 totally different things. Like people fell in love with like a Zach Wilson. I mean, that was more on his pro day, I think, but like it just it gets shady when a player like Drake May, who people still have a lot of question marks about, declines to go throw. Just like why are you doing that? Just like it's not it. The chances of you getting injured at the combine throwing for a quarterback are pretty low, I would say. Like go there and put that notch back up, like, you know what I mean? So I think that is an issue now in today's combine. So it makes it less appealing to us as fans, less appealing to general managers. Like I'm pretty sure the Rams just send a couple of scouts and watch it. Like they don't actually, like, I don't think Les Snead is there. I don't think Sean McVay is there. So it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. I don't really agree with opting out of something like that if you're trying to elevate your draft stock. What I do really agree with, though, is that the GMs are there to talk to each other and get face-to-face time with other GMs and kind of work out these possible draft day deals, or like you said, Justin Fields, a player possibly like L'Jarius Sneed, who's going to get franchise tagged, possibly traded, like that. Those conversations are going to be happening. So yeah, I think that it's more important now for the GMs and the media than it is for the actual players participating in the combine. But for the fans, I will say this: it's this like milestone in the off season where you're like, oh, we're at the combine, like we're getting to it, like free agent. It's like the thing in between the tag and free agency is the combine to get you hyped for the draft. After the draft, you guys have possibilities, and then it's training camp, and then all of a sudden we're back. You know what I mean? So it like helps the NFL's like off season dominance as like the predominant sport in America.
Yeah, I think the combine has kind of turned into a good old boys club. I kind of look at it the same way I look at a country club right now. Like you go to the country club, but it's not really to use the country club. It's to see the other people who go to the country club. Kind of feels like
that status of country clubness.
Yeah. It's a status thing. And I think as NIL becomes more prevalent in college sports, that there's not really going to be a reason for these agents to be putting these kids out there, you know? Like, just like pro days are becoming more and more valuable. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's all about optics, and these kids, right? The size of these, first round pick contracts being so lucrative draws these massive agents now, and they would rather them do a pro day than the combine, right?
Well, you also decide what you're doing at the pro day. Like you decide your drills. Like you decide like the throws you're gonna make.
Weaknesses, just like
you know who's throwing to you.
Yeah, I feel like a dude who might actually benefit from combine is like JJ McCarthy, maybe. I think
could see that.
Consensus NFL world, like us as fans and analysts, are lower on him than execs are, and part of that might be because Harbaugh has been talking him up and like having real conversations about him. But I think he might be a dude who's going to showcase some stuff if he goes. So, okay.
Possibly like a Spencer Rattler as well. Michael
Yeah.
Penix is his medical, like how that kind of goes over at the combine, his interviews, like that's going to be pretty impactful on his draft stock. So like Blake said, it's the people kind of slightly outside the first round who could possibly elevate themselves into getting that first round type of deal.
Yeah, and it might be, some teams like to trade up to the bottom of the first to get that fifth-year option. And so proving like maybe I'm worth that long-term development. Yeah. And then you have players who don't even have agents anymore. The world is a crazy place.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of a crazy place and crazy things happening, let's talk about Eric Bieniemy, the Ballad of Eric Bieniemy, as I like to call it. This has been, I think, something in the offseason that consistently, I would say, another example of where fans and NFL executives just really tend to differ. This guy was buzzing around the league just 2 years ago, I think, as one of the hot head coaching candidates. Like he's gonna reinvigorate some franchise. Like this is the dude to have. That cycle goes by and he doesn't get anything. So then the next year he leaves after also not even getting any interviews the following year. He leaves to go to the Commanders. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, who obviously suffered from a lot of success while he was there. He leads the Commanders to a pretty potent passing attack. I wouldn't say they had a great offense, but he did take a 5th-round pick in Sam Howell, and he was leading the league in passing yards for a good couple weeks of the season. He ended top 10, I believe, with a pretty bad offensive line, and, he's a 5th-round pick. Nobody really expected Sam Howell to do any of that, I would say. It's easy to say, he throws a lot of interceptions, he does this, he does that. So what do you guys think? What's really going on here? You see all the speculation, you see all the, he's got some shady past and they're lording it over him, or he's just like the most awkward person you've ever met and he just sucks at interviewing.
I think a big thing that hurt him before he went to Washington was that Andy Reid was calling plays in Kansas City. Like he wasn't the one designing the offense or calling plays. He was the one basically coordinating what Andy wanted, taking like some things off of Andy's plate. And I think that hurt him that year. What I will say is I agree with you on the Washington's offense. I think that they got more out of the players that they had there than most people would. I don't get people give a guy like Arthur Smith a shot. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you give a guy like Eric Bieniemy a shot? I get that when Arthur Smith was in Tennessee with Vrabel, that offense was very potent, but you also had Derrick Henry who could carry 6 people on his back driving that offense. Like, like Ryan, he helped Ryan Tannehill a lot with the play action and kind of breaking the what's the word? Who is Tannehill's coach before that? He's an idiot.
Adam Gase.
Philbin?
Adam Gase. He broke that Adam Gase like thing that was on Ryan Tannehill. I will give him that, but I just it has to have been something about play calling and not actually being the primary play caller, the primary offensive designer. Having Patrick Mahomes, like people probably gave him knocks on those. Having no actual like head coaching experience naturally. I think those kind of all played into it. As for what's going on behind the scenes, I can't really speak to that. I'm not there. I don't really see any big time like rumors about it. So like I would just have to say the play calling experience.
Yeah. So he moves to UCLA as their assistant head coach. Shane, do you think he's ever going to get another shot in the league? Sometimes these guys get relegated down. I use the word relegated. They move down to the college level and they just kind of never find their way back up. Do you think we've seen the last of Eric Bieniemy in the league, or do you think he could make a return one day?
Well, I mean, I guess first it depends on how he likes college because he's going into a situation right now with UCLA, who was hired UCLA royalty, Deshaun Foster as their head coach. He's inherited two really good running backs in Carson Steele and T.J. Harden, who were, I think, one of the better 1-2 punches in the Pac-12 last year. And last year was a great year of football for the Pac-12, which is now going to be the Pac, however many is left. And when it comes to Bieniemy's chances in the NFL, I think his best bet is going to be whenever he does, if I get a chance to call plays, like y'all pointed out, because he was able to implement Andy Reid's offense in Kansas City, but he still wasn't the one to call plays. And unfortunately, when it comes to play calling efficiency, the way plays are run, the way teams are prepared, how well they look in terms of like understanding the plays and their formations, that falls back on the coaching if they can't live up to it. Whereas Andy Reid has earned the respect around the league to be given the benefit of the doubt. Eric Bieniemy, even though he's been able to, I don't want to say ride the coattails, but has been able to cruise along with a high-powered Kansas City offense for his first couple of years with them, and then ultimately get his chance in Washington, which really fell off the rails in the second half of the season, really looks bad on him as well as it did Ron Rivera. I don't believe he's done because I believe that there's going to be connections in the NFL that are going to bring him back, and that's the reality is that most jobs in the NFL are undeserved, but they get there because of networking and connections. I think he's still a good coach, and I think he's going to take advantage of the fact that in UCLA they have no quarterback, and they're going to run the hell out of the ball. UCLA last year crossed 2,000 yards rushing between three players, and they ran it with like 8 or 9 different guys all season. They actually finished 16th in the NCAA in running the ball. Again, but they had 4 different starting quarterbacks last year. So they don't have a quarterback, but they got 2 really good running backs, which really going to be something that he can take advantage of. I'm getting off top.
Are you a UCLA fan by any chance? Because you just had a lot of relevant information for them, like ready to go.
Well, no, I watched UCLA play a couple times, and when we talked about it in pre-show, we're going to talk about Bieniemy, and I was like, okay, let me get some stuff ready to go on this that I can throw in there and make myself sound smart, like I do all the time. And but to answer the actual question, no, I don't think he's done. I think actually this is the opportunity for him for NFL teams to see, okay, is he actually really this good of a coach, and was he just in a bad situation in Washington? Or even for him, maybe I like the job much more where I would say job secure lifestyle of college football is to the NFL, because in college football, a lot of times like bad coaches will get to stay on longer just because it's easier for them to stick with these guys and go out and get someone new. Especially unless you're a blue blood program. Blue blood programs are run like the NFL, but UCLA,
he's also an associate head coach as well. So like,
yeah, that's yeah. The coordinators and the assistant head coach, the associate head coaches, the guys who will fill in if the head coach can't make it, kind of like in Michigan, we saw how that worked out. Mm-hmm. Those guys will usually get the interviews first, so that will out on top. But no, I don't truly believe he's done, but he might have the chance to say I might be done with the NFL. Who knows?
Yeah. So
I'll say this right now: I like Alex Van Pelt, but I would sure as hell feel a lot better if Eric Bieniemy was the Patriots' offensive coordinator. But I don't think he wanted to, laterally continue to move laterally.
Yeah, that wouldn't have made him look any better. You want to go to a team, even if they're bad, they at least have some sort of establishment on offense that you can work with, whether it's a quarterback or skill positions, and they don't. Nothing.
Not one thing. Demario Douglas.
Now, whenever y'all draft J.D. Daniels, you'll be fine.
All right. So Blake, the old boy Bahooke. Let's switch gears now and talk about the whole salary cap thing that went down here a little bit ago. So salary cap for the NFL increased for every team. I believe it was by $30 million. Is that correct?
30.6.
Which I think was about $11 to $12 million north of what people were projecting that increase to be.
Yeah, they were expecting 242, 243.
So this comes at a time where I believe I checked today, and the Bills have the most negative cap space in the NFL.
That's because the Saints restructured 25 deals already, doing classic Saints stuff.
Derek Carr thing. So talk to us. How does it make you feel when the cap changes like this? Do you feel like, okay, it helps teams that are in the negative kind of come closer to neutral without having to do too much? Or do you feel like it is really just like a luxury for some of those teams in the middle? Like, do you think it
Both.
helps teams sign more players, or does it just help available players get more money? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I mean, yeah, both. Honestly, is the team? Yeah, I will say the Bills can cut off about like half of their over the capness, for lack of a better term. Once they restructure Josh's deal, it's imminent. That's gonna take like 26 million off of it, and then I want to say Ed Oliver is another one.
Miller.
I was reading it the other day. There's a handful of them. I can't remember all the names, but it's basically laid out. They just haven't done it yet. And in regards, I mean, more money, I think is generally better for everyone. I don't think that whether you're someone who's lower class, middle class, upper class, if you get a big chunk of, if you get your tax return back, you're generally happy. And so
I owed money last year.
It's tax season now, and the tax returns came back a little bit juicier than everyone was expecting. So I don't know why anyone would be upset about it. Maybe I guess once free agency starts and we see some of the overpays and we see some shockwaves that are like I said earlier with the Christian Kirk deal that it broke the market. I think reset the market would be a better word. I think we're going to see probably several positions have their markets reset this year because of that. But right now, as a Bills fan, like you said, we got to get to at least zero and break even here, and ideally a little bit more, so we can maybe bring in a couple low-key guys that don't impact the compensatory pick formula.
Yeah. Shane, what do you think? What's your salary cap ain't real? I mean, conspiracy theory, I think we all kind of question, like, you might have to have a PhD in economics to truly understand how the salary cap actually affects these teams at this point.
Listen,
I can. Oh no, you go.
I've said this before. The salary cap ain't real because to me the salary cap is a couple things. One, it's bookkeeping for the NFL to keep record of who they're paying, and two, it's a justification that owners and GMs have used to either underpay players or also keep their players in line in terms of and also convince other players to take less for the betterment of the team. It's also a way. It's also a tool that's been used to sort of trick fans that can't think for themselves. That a millionaire player is being selfish while a billionaire owner is selling snake oil. So that's one reason why I think the salary cap ain't real, and why I applaud Major League Baseball at the very least for not having that salary cap, and also allows players to make up their minds for themselves. The Yankees go out and buy all the stars; they can't do nothing with them. There you go, Lamb. That one's for you.
Thank you.
They drafted Aaron Judge.
What's he done for him?
Name another player they drafted in the last 10 years that they didn't buy.
Since that happened, the Red Sox already won a World Series.
I'm editing this to be fifth base territory, and we'll see you guys next week.
Okay, maybe if someone
don't call it fifth base territory because fifth base. No. Wait a second. Don't call it fifth base territory because unless you know what that means, you do not want to name something fifth base.
Hey, we get viewers. We get it for the totally wrong thing, but we get more viewers.
Yeah. I don't. And I also ain't gonna explain on here what it is, but you got Google. I'm assuming so you can look up for yourself. But your question. I'm sorry.
I guess the argument against that would be though, like teams like the Oakland A's, I guess, are the famous ones. Bahooke and I are fellow Moneyball lovers.
We just watched it. Great movie.
Yeah. So the big argument there is the salary cap is the great leveling field, right? It keeps the rich, super rich owners from dominating. Because I mean, like, was it? I'm not a baseball fan, so I'm gonna embarrass myself here. There's an LA team, I believe. Is it the Angels who just signed two really big contracts?
Dodgers.
The Dodgers.
Dodgers. Thank you.
Three contracts.
They signed.
They're the Death Star of baseball right now.
Yeah. So they spent $1.3 billion this offseason on three players.
Mm-hmm.
So like that feels a little inevitable for the MLB world. And would we even want to see that in the NFL? I understand the point of view, like, okay, it's to keep players and this imaginary number that, oh, you need to take less because our best player over here, whose deal we signed 2 years ago when the cap was $60 million less, like he's only making this much, so you can only make that much. Like, I get that perspective.
I think that the MLB and the NBA do it right because they have these brackets that you like. It's not a salary cap. You're able to spend over the amount that they set, but as soon as you spend over a certain apron, then the owner has to pay a certain amount of tax, like a luxury tax, on that, like on the team essentially. So you, as an owner, control that. Like if you want to spend as much as you can spend, you're going to get taxed a certain percentage once you hit these other spending aprons. So like I think the NFL should try and look at something like that. So it's like there's no cap, there's a cap per se, but each team has the availability to go over the cap if the owner wants to spend the money in the tax to kind of do that. One thing that we as fans all have to like look at and really get better at during free agency is don't look at the number. 5 years, 120 million. Great, good job. That's nice on paper.
What's the guarantee?
What's the guarantee?
How many
5 years?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it 5 years with 80 million guaranteed over the first 3 years? So really that's a 3-year deal, $80 million.
Yep. And that dude's out of there
that's
in 2
all
years.
the money they're getting. Huh?
And that dude's out of there after 2 seasons.
Yeah, exactly, because they're looking to restructure the deal after year
Mhm.
2, and they're like, I don't know if we could do this. We might have to
Yep.
move money to your void year. And he's like, yo, get me out of here. I want my bread you guaranteed me.
Mhm.
So like it
Wait, we start talking about Russell Wilson.
No, we should talk about Deshaun Watson. His deal's fully
Ooh,
guaranteed.
That's a fully guaranteed. That's a
Guaranteed.
good point. That's a good-
$230 million, fully guaranteed.
And look at Baker Mayfield over here making the playoffs, almost making the NFC Championship game in Tampa. Like, who won that trade?
He was done so dirty by Cleveland, man.
He really was.
The
Texans might be the biggest robbers in the NFL the last 2 years because the way that they dumped off a player who really didn't belong in Houston after what went down to begin with, getting more draft capital. I think a lot of people expect. You got 3 firsts and then some extra players as well, and turn them into a couple of future All-Stars. Look, y'all got C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, Tank Dell, Jarrett Patterson all in one draft. Like, that ain't fair. And you got it all from the Deshaun trade.
And you saved $230 million, fully guaranteed. Yeah, no. So
Louie's over there getting a little excited, but you just can't see because it cuts off right here.
Yeah, I know. Right out of camera. Strategic
laptop bumping.
Added next week.
No, but like that probably might be the prime example of why people don't give guaranteed contracts. It's just because of that. Not even Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, at least I would say, performed up to the level of his guaranteed deal. Just because he, at the very least,
he always
he gets his bag. Yeah, but he performs.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson like can't stay on the field, and I don't know. And people were like ready to jump on the train after he hadn't played in almost 2 years to give it away. So yeah, that's like I think I was
ready to give him a shot.
Well, teams talking about 2 firsts and then a couple other things. Y'all got 3 firsts and then some other stuff because Cleveland was desperate. I don't know why y'all were desperate. Cleveland had assets.
Baker Mayfield went to that team when they were 1-16, I believe, and then he beat the Steelers in the playoffs, their rival, and gave them their first playoff win in like 25 years. And then they were like, "Nah, we're shipping you off for a dude who won't play for 2.5 years. We're giving him the full and bag, guaranteed." And he might suck now at this point. So yeah, I don't know what the Haslams were doing. They're getting blackballed by the rest of the owners in the NFL, I think, as well. Nobody wants to talk to them at the country club.
Yeah. And the ramifications of that deal, I'm sure will echo, especially as we start seeing some of these other young stars start getting paid. But yeah. So you guys let us know, right? Leave some comments. Tell us, is the salary cap real? Do you believe?
The Saints prove every single year that the salary cap isn't real. They were negative $85 million last week. Now they're negative 30 million.
I don't think the Saints are ever going to be good, though. Feels because they never have the money.
Irrelevant. They still opened up $50 million in cap space. That was the point. It doesn't matter if they're good or not.
Yeah, but I mean, they have the most expensive roster.
In like 3 moves, they did it.
You know what I mean? That's the point. Like, yes,
I've been saying
you can move this money around, but you still have to pay it eventually. And all it's doing is like, oh, I'm kicking the can down the road. Like, you can only do that so much. It's the same thing.
I've been saying that same thing since Drew Brees retired.
And they have sucked since.
Yeah, but they're still doing it. they're still doing it. Like,
I know.
that means the cap's not real. It has nothing to do whether you pick the right players to perform on your team. Those players are still having all this money moved around so that that team can go and do other things and sign other free agents. Like, we've been saying it for 4 years that, oh, it's going to catch up to him. Oh, it's going to catch up to him. Oh, it's like, when? I thought it was going to be this year again. Again, wave your magic wand. There's $50 million freed up. They're going to go restructure 3 more deals, and they're going to have like $20 million to spend. They're going to go get a premium. They'll go sign Jalen Johnson or something for $80 million or $100 million. You know what I mean? With like 60 guaranteed. And you're just going to be like, what? I thought you guys are operating in the black. What's going on? Yeah, they pissed me off.
I guess I have different perspectives because I'm like, so the one they restructured is Carl Granderson. Is that what you're talking about?
Eric McCoy.
Okay.
Granderson, Derek Carr, and one other player. Taysom Hill's about to make more money than like Travis Kelce this year. I'm pretty sure.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine having to look around your team and be like, yeah, we're paying this dude who takes marginal snaps for us more
15
than a Hall of Fame tight end.
I'm not saying that they did it right, but I'm saying that it's possible to do it because the cap isn't real.
Until I see it done and someone actually benefit from it, I'm not saying you can't do it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it doesn't work out. It's like the concept of like the consequences of steroids aren't real because I've never seen someone actually like
take them.
I've never seen Shrunken.
Rabbit hole.
But I'm saying like you're just like, oh, he's big and he takes steroids, ergo I should take steroids. Like, no, there are consequences.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it strings from rabbit hole too.
I think the year the Rams won the Super Bowl that year, I believe that they were doing that sort of thing. Not to the same extent as the Saints, but they had a roster and their cap space was literally like close to zero, and they still find ways to rework these deals. And like you cut a Leonard Floyd, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're like, all right, we're back. Von Miller leaves, you're good. We're back to being a good team. It's not to the same extent, but a few small moves, you're able to move mountains worth of money on the cap like that. You know what I mean? Which for me makes me wicked bad because the Pats have like almost $90 million. Yes, wicked. It's in my blood. The Pats have almost $90 million in cap space, and they're going to hit me with like, oh, well, we couldn't come to terms with a deal with like a player like Kyle Duggar. And I'll be like, what do you mean you couldn't come to terms? Like, go hire somebody from the Saints over here to work your books. Somebody's cooking that shit. What do you do? What do you mean? Like, don't come at me with that.
Best I can do is Jonnu Smith on a 1-year deal.
Oh, dude. They gave Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry like $60 million guaranteed.
Threw the ball to him like 3 times.
Yeah, that was wicked stupid.
It was wicked stupid. You know what? You know what was wicked pissa? When Brady won 6 Super Bowls. I said wicked pissa.
What does that mean? I'm from Texas. I don't know what pissa means. Are you saying you take a piss?
No, I'm saying awesome. Like wicked pissa.
That sounds like he was pissed or he's taking a piss. I'm from Texas. I don't know what the pissa is.
I've never heard of that one either.
Yeah, that's a new one for me too, Lambo.
Yeah.
New England slang, baby. New England slang. You know what's good.
You shout ahead.
JRC.
Dead. All right. So we got a couple minutes here left. So let's talk about the running back market. We're going to try and keep this right at an hour. So we got 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So last year we talked about the fact that all these running backs got tagged. And they all had to play under the tag, and we kind of talked about the consequence of that, and it kind of maybe how it felt like the market was colluding a little bit against these running backs. Well, this year, none of them got tagged. And so now the market's kind of flooded with these older backs who are probably still going to struggle to get a contract because they have a lot of competition. And there's going to be there's only so many teams that need a running back. And that happens in a year where I don't feel like the running back class in this draft is as strong with premium talent as past years.
Last year was a great year if you needed a running back.
Mm-hmm. And the teams that took a running back, I felt like the Lions and the Falcons. And I mean, obviously, like, you know, there's a lot of great ones. Keaton Mitchell and Devin A-Chain, who went in later rounds. So not disregarding those guys. But, you know, these are premium, big name household backs, dudes who've been doing a lot of dirty work for their team, and they all just going to get let go on the same year. Like Henry's not getting tagged. It doesn't sound like Jacobs isn't getting tagged. Saquon's not getting tagged.
Nope.
So how many teams are actually going to be interested in giving these guys a big contract?
I think Barkley, Jacobs, and Eckler are all probably going to get like the James Conner type deal, the 3 for 21, you know, like 16 or 17 fully guaranteed. I think that's kind of like where they're all going to fall in. I think Derrick Henry gets like a 1 year, $10 million deal, something along those lines, probably from like the Ravens or something like that. But it's such a tough year for a running, like Tony Pollard. He might not get signed. Like he might not, like, yeah, because you just so happen to hit the market with 5 other dudes who are better than you and premier talent at the position.
Mm-hmm. And DeAndre Swift, Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard. Like I feel like there's a nice tier 2 of guys as well.
Gus Edwards, he's a name no one talks about, but he's been really, really good for the Ravens.
I like Gus Edwards.
Devin Singletary, your guy up in Houston. He was a reserve guy, but he still did well in reserve snaps, even though obviously he was not the focal point.
Yeah.
And then you add in the, like, it's not the strongest running back draft class, but like those dudes are getting paid minimal money if you're taking them in the 3rd round, which most running backs in this draft are probably going to go. So it's like you're looking at a dude like, am I going to give Austin Eckler $8 million a year, or am I just going to go draft Dylan Labe, I think it is, out of New Hampshire in the 4th round, and he can catch 60 balls for me out of the backfield. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I completely agree. I just feel like, you know, I feel like this position, especially as it declines in value and it just kind of becomes this workhorse role, I feel like this is another really great example of where the tag is mismanaged. Like there's nothing for these guys to do about this. They all got tagged last year, and they're probably not going to get very much money this year.
I'll say this real quick as we're running out of time, and that's while I think a lot of these higher end running backs, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, they're the ones who are going to get the bigger money. I think we're getting closer to the end of days where running backs are getting $10+ million a year in multi-year deals. I think those guys are going to get more, like you said, with a James Conner or even a Jamal Williams, who got 3 years, $22 million last year. Those guys who are still really good, but teams are going to go back to more of a split backfield. They'll pay $6, $7, $8 million a year, and that'll be about it for them. If you want some of these higher running backs to get $10 or plus $1 million a year, you're talking about a 1 year deal at most. I think we're starting to see that move.
Jamal Williams, who the Saints signed with negative $10 million in cap space.
But that's still the contract that I think is the area I think it's going into.
Yeah, no, I'm just making another point to our previous conversation about the Saints and their cap space.
All of that for Saquon Barkley to be a Texan. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that it's either Barkley or Jacobs, to be honest. I think that one of them is going to Houston. I think it's a great idea for them to do that to help CJ Stroud. Damn, I was going to say something else, and now I can't remember. Bahooke, you got any closing thoughts? Let me recollect myself.
Yeah, you guys hit most of it. Yeah, I did see Fox Sports post an article about Saquon maybe going to Dallas, and that would just piss off so many jobs.
Nope, just move on from that. It ain't gonna happen. Every
Shane cut him out of the show.
Every free agent gets tagged to the Cowboys. It ain't gonna happen. The Cowboys are gonna sign guys like Troy Dye for $500,000 and make him a starter. That's their MO. Is they sign cheap.
The Cowboys are drafting Jonathan Brooks or like a Braylon Allen type.
No, Jonathan Brooks is so good.
I love Braylon Allen. I don't like drafting hurt running backs. But I'm going to stop talking because we're out of time. I'm sorry.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for us. Blake's been dipping in and out for the last 20 minutes, which is our sign to finally cut off for the day. So as always, thanks for tuning in. Your hosts, again, go follow these guys on Twitter. Shane's always putting out great content. Go follow Stadium Rant on Twitter. There are tons of great articles, tons of great polls and insights that you guys are going to get. As always, we're sponsored by Stadium Rant. So check out articles, check out newsletters, check out the website, stadiumrant.com. And as always, guys, we'll see you next week.
One quick point. Blake's been cutting in and out since we started doing the show. Not only for the last 50 minutes, it's been for the last year and a half. But on that note,